Welcome to the Live Full, Work Fun podcast. This is the show to encourage you to live your life to the fullest and do fun work that fuels your lifestyle. Hi, I'm your host, Gayla Scrivener. Every week, you'll be introduced to amazing guests, useful resources, and inspirational stories. You'll discover opportunities and perspectives to shape your version of living full and working fun. Hi there and welcome. This season, we're exploring the theme, Don't Let the Start Stop You. It's a powerful reminder that while beginnings can be daunting, they're also the gateway to growth, success, and happiness. That's why today I've asked Lisa McGuire to return to the show for a conversation. Lisa is a certified personal brand specialist, an award-winning business storyteller, and the founder of Your Passion, Purpose, and Personal Brand podcast. As a third-generation entrepreneur, she's an expert brand in her own right. Named by LinkedIn as a top personal branding voice, she puts her words into action to build what she calls a personal brand of integrity. She carries this message of passion and purpose in her weekly podcast that currently ranks in the top 10% of the nearly 3 million podcasts globally. Her framework, called The Difference Is You, helps service providers discover and live in alignment with who they are as they grow a business that is designed around them. This customized journey integrates multiple tools. One of the most impactful is human design. She currently resides in Atlanta, Georgia, where she enjoys experiencing all 4 seasons outdoors and spending time with her husband, her grown children, 2 grandsons, and multiple 4-footed family members. Welcome, Lisa. Thank you so much for being here again today.
Well, I appreciate the invitation, Gayla. I'm looking forward to a great conversation.
What I love that you help service providers discover and live in alignment with who they are and grow a business that's designed around them, not creating like a soul-sucking type of work, right? And it's so in line with my philosophy of live full, work fun. Mm-hmm. And I just love that.
Well, that's great. I think we're seeing more and more of that. People are willing to stand up and say, you know, what you're telling me is the kind of life I have to live. I'm going to choose something different.
Going into that, what's prompting so many people to want to do something different with their lives?
Yeah. So what I really have seen is we have been given this, I also often call it a script to follow, right? So if you want to be successful in life, and this starts, this has come down through generations. You have to get training. You have to get a good job. You have to get a good paying job. You have to get a safe job that's going to be secure so you don't have to keep looking for work. And it has worked up until now, but we are moving past survival. Now we're looking at work not only to bring in revenue, but also for some fulfillment. And so what we're finding is companies may not be on that same path, right? And so what happens is you're looking for a way to find fulfillment at work. So whether it's doing work that you love, or maybe it's being in a community where you feel like you're a part of something, or being part of a company where you can contribute to a social cause. But when that doesn't align, what we're finding is people are looking for other options. And a lot of that started in COVID, when we had a chance to pause and look up and ask, what am I really doing with my life?
People may be timid about breaking away from the norm. Even though in COVID we were able to step back, and many people had that step back moment and just trudged forward and did something different. But do you find that people are still timid about reinventing themselves?
Yes, and I want to call out the phrase reinventing. And the reason why is this is what I was calling it, right? So I have a podcast, and one of the kind of types of guest that I bring in is someone comes in and they talk about the life they were living. They have this big aha moment. They change their trajectory, and they basically have reinvented themselves. So as I was speaking about this, what I started to notice is there were a good chunk of people who I could see visibly step back. Like even on a Zoom screen, like you can see them, they withdrew themselves from the conversation. And I started getting curious about that. I thought, what is the fear of this word? And it wasn't the fear of the word reinvention. It was the thought that I'm going to have to burn everything down and start over again, right? Now, we know change is hard, even for a little bit. But the thought to think about burning everything down, what does it mean? Does it mean I have to, abandon everything in my life that I've learned, my family, my friends? Who would I become if I became this new version of me? And would I even like them? So it's very understandable why people started getting a little bit timid about the thought of reinventing themselves.
Reinventing does not mean that you're totally changing.
No, it doesn't mean you're totally changing. If you think about it, every day we have an opportunity to reinvent ourselves. So I'll just use an example. So if yesterday you had this goal of eating healthy, and Halloween's coming up, so there may be a little candy around your house. And you had a little snack bar, and then maybe later in the day you had another one of those little Snickers bars, and you got to the end of the day and you just thought, oh, I already had that. Why don't I just go ahead and have this, right? Then when you get up the next day, you can come in with a new goal, a new fortitude, this new idea of, I'm not going to be that person I was yesterday. I'm going to be a little bit better than that. So every day we have a chance to reinvent ourselves. But Gayla, what I really decided is rather than talking about reinvention, maybe we need to start with where people are at the initial stage. None of those people that come on my podcast and tell those stories got up one day and said, I'm going to reinvent myself. They saw something and they began to reimagine their lives. So that's what I would love to people to consider to do is let's start with something a little bit safer where you can stay in your ecosystem that you're in. You can exist in your home and your role in whatever it is. And let's reimagine how life might look different from you based on what you want out of it.
Is that the first step that
Yeah.
you would think? And folks may let the start stop you. I think you've already addressed that what's stopping them is that it may be so drastically different. Your reinvention does not have to be very drastic. So our first step is to explore and imagine what life can be like.
Yes, it's really dreaming, and it's looking at what do you want your days to look like? If money were no object, if all of the reasons that we come up with why things don't work, let's just set those all to the side. What is it that you would love your life to look like? How many hours a week would you like to work? Where would you like to travel? What type of future are you looking for as you get into your later years? And I'm not even talking about turning 65, but now they're talking about there is a new life phase, right? It goes from after 65 to 75. Chip Conley from the Modern Elder Academy says middle age is now 35 to 75. So if you have 40 years for middle age, then what are you going to do with those years? So start thinking a little bit long term. What do I want my life to look like? What's it going to take to get there? And even better, what is one thing I can do today that will get me to that place? And that's a great first step to take.
Had you gone through a reinvention of your life?
Yes, I definitely did go through a reinvention. And that reinvention really kind of took me by surprise. It was during COVID. I was, like many people, sequestered to my home. And at that time, there was a popular app called Clubhouse. I think it still exists today, but we're not living on it the way that we had been. And so I was in one of the Clubhouse rooms, and this person was on the stage speaking, and a question came from the audience. And I don't really even remember the question, but I remember the answer. I will never forget it. The answer came in the form of a question, and it was, whose filter are you living your life through? And when I heard that question, it just like everything went silent, right? whose filter are you living your life through? I never thought about that. I thought, well, I'm making all the choices. But when I started really looking at it, I realized that I fell into the success story, right? This is what you have to do to have a successful life. And it's the age old go to school, get a job, find a partner, get a home, make a lot of money. And then when you retire, you can have the fun that you want. And I thought, I just don't want to settle for that. I don't want to get to the end of my life regretting something that I didn't try, something that I didn't do. So at that point, I made the decision, because it is a decision, Gayla. I made a decision that I was going to go after something different.
Did you have any challenges that you faced? Maybe that was kind of stopping you to get started?
Yeah. So if you think about decades of conditioning, of being told how to live your life, and then all of a sudden you decide, okay, I'm going to take a different path. First of all, there's not a roadmap, or there wasn't a roadmap for me to follow. And I decided that, okay, imagining what did I want my life to look like? Well, one thing I knew, and my children had left the home. Okay, so I'm an empty nester, my husband and I at this point. And I started looking around at all of the things, right? Because we know when we have physical materials in our way, they can be distracting. So I started looking at all the things and thinking about, okay, this new version of me, of who I want to be. Do I really need those boxes of papers that I don't even know what's in there? Do I need, these pictures? Do I need all of this clothing? So one of the very first things I did was go to my closet, open it up, and I started cleaning it out. And it was a little bit of a Marie Kondo moment, if you remember Marie Kondo.
I know Marie Kondo, yes.
Yeah, so I'd hold up a garment and I would look at it and I think, does the future Lisa need to wear this? Will she be wearing this? About 80% of my clothing, the answer was no. So I got rid of all of that clothing. And the thing that was so surprising to me, I found a place to donate it, which was great. Some of them I didn't fit into anymore. Some I had a harder time because it might have been, oh, I wore this to this event, right? So it's not the piece of clothing, it's the memory connected with that. Well, the way to overcome that is take a photo of it. You still have the memory. You don't need the piece of clothing, especially if you're never going to wear it again. But what I did not realize was when you get rid of that, and you get rid of the things around you, that you need to understand you still have the memories, but those are not your identity. So there was a grieving process of understanding there's a part of me I'm going to leave behind, which I lovingly thanked because that's what got me to where I was today. So that was probably one of the first difficult things, is understanding that just because you're moving ahead doesn't mean you need to say goodbye to that old person, but rather honor that old version of yourself that got you to where you are.
Did that process translate into your professional life?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I saw this in my business. I thought, what are the things I'm doing that aren't really moving the needle, right? Again, when you become an entrepreneur, I remember one of the very first things my former boss told me. He said, this means you're going to need to network. And the reason why that was such an important statement is he knew that in my former role, when I was out networking, I didn't really like it. I didn't know what the purpose was. I would go to these breakfasts and sit with people I didn't know. I didn't know what I was supposed to talk about. So I think the thing of understanding what I was told to do as an entrepreneur versus making the decision of what made sense for me and my business, it was the same thing. It was clearing out clutter. It was clearing out clients. It was clearing out things that didn't make sense for my business that I wanted to have moving forward.
And you mentioned what was moving the needle or not. And I think it's important that we need to know what direction we want the needle to go. it's not the same for everyone. I mean, we kind of think of, well, what's moving the needle? And we always think of income, but maybe we don't want to build a business that's a multi-million dollar with 50 employees and all of this. But it seems like we have that pressure as an entrepreneur that that's what we should be doing.
You know, you're exactly right about that, Gayla. And when I first started, I remember somebody would say something about if you want to scale your business. And I remember thinking, but I don't want to scale my business, right? The priority for me, the top priority was not making a lot of money. The top priority for me was having the flexibility in my schedule to, if one day, I'll just give you an example. A few weeks ago, my daughter was looking at getting a new puppy, and she had a chance. She found a puppy. It was one of those, one of those rare breeds. And oh, this was perfect. And the timing was perfect. And she called me and said, would you like to go with me? I'm going to drive up to Cartersville and I'm going to go pick up this puppy. Well, I looked at my schedule that day. There were some things I could move and things that weren't really critical to do during that time. And I thought, this is exactly why I went into business for myself. So that flexibility, that freedom, the ability to work with whoever I wanted, that to me is my top priority, and being able to make the impact I want in the world. Whereas, the story we're told is you're in business to make money. Sure, that's one of the things, but I think we're in business for a whole lot more.
Well, earning a living is what we need to sustain a lifestyle. But when we let go of why do we need all of the stuff? Well, you need to earn a lot more money to buy all of the stuff. So when you let go of the stuff and prioritize relationships and experiences, the whole dynamic changes, I think.
It really does. It really does. I remember, when my husband and I were first married, and we would make a decision about, we wanted to go buy a couch, right? And so this couch was going to be a lot of money for us, especially that time. And I remember repeatedly, no matter what it was, we would have the conversation. Well, when the kids get older, then they can have this. We can pass it on to them. The big aha moment was when our children got older, that generation, they don't want our stuff, right? They want nothing to do with it. Yeah, they're all about the experience and the memory and what is the adventure I could have. So, it was a great way to reconcile that purchase. But things are really different.
Well, I'm curious, what is human design and how do you help clients to use this tool?
Yeah, so I had not heard of human design till about 3.5 years ago. And I was working with someone and they said, I'm very much into understanding who I am, the personality test. What are the skills? What gifts can I bring to the table? And they said, I think you'd really like human design because it is a system. It's very logical and organized. I think you would really enjoy it. So I wasn't really sure. And I looked into it, and she happened to know someone who could analyze my human design chart. So I went to this gentleman, and I didn't know really what it was, but Gayla, all I know is in the 90-minute time I had with him, I spent the whole time giggling, because when he would tell me some things about how I was wired, I would just say, wait, you don't understand what I do. Like, how did you know that? Right? Like that was the whole conversation from my side. So after I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. So basically what human design is, and I'll compare this to a personality test. If you think about a personality test like DISC or Myers-Briggs or even the Enneagram, the reason we take a test is it is based on a system, but the answers you give will give you a different outcome, right? Based on how you answered the questions. However, human design, there are no questions to answer. And the reason is personality test is the basis of who you are. But then we add in all the stories we tell ourselves, how we perceive the world, where we became the victim. And it's your natural design with the trauma or triggers on top of that tell you who you are. I tend to be someone who likes to get to the root. Who am I really? And so human design is a system that is your energetic blueprint of how you are wired to operate in the world, right? So we hear when people say, "Oh, I really love their energy," or that person had a really kind of sketchy energy, like I didn't like their vibe, right? So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about energy. And the human design body graph will give you clues as to what your natural wiring is and also point out when you are out of alignment. So that is where I just jumped all in. I'm in a 2-year certification program for how to design your business around you. And it has been so liberating because now I see how I was designed to operate in a business. And it wasn't always what the gurus have said.
If one were to work with you, you'd take an assessment and then you go through the results of the assessment with the
Yes,
person.
yes. So on my website, and you can put my
Mhm.
website in the show notes there, but there is a tab called Get Your Free Chart. Just fill out the form there. You will download your body graph, send it to me, and there's 3 different sessions that you can choose. And so I will go through and analyze and give you feedback on how you are wired, and you'll see some pretty mind-blowing stuff.
Also, you have a Reimagine You quiz.
Yes.
Is that's something different?
Yes, it is. And this goes back to when we were talking about reinvention, Gayla, right? Like people
Mhm.
are, I'm not really sure where to start. So when I talked about reimagine, there are things that are driving us to reimagine. So there's actually 4 different categories that you can fall in. So I created this quiz for people to make it easy. 12 questions. You go on, you take the quiz. It will give you one of your 4 styles. And then based on your results, I have a 10-page packed with all kinds of resources for you to start working through with questions and prompts. And what does this look like in the world that will put you on a path to start that reimagine process?
Well, I had heard that we're different people every 7 or 10 years. Should we be thinking ahead about knowing that typically in different seasons of our life, we tend to reinvent ourselves? Should we just positively lean into that or wait for disgruntlement in our in our lives?
Well, just knowing the public as I do, there are a lot of people who are very much about being in control, right? So, do you want to be proactive and have a choice in where you're going and what you're going to do? Or would you rather have things happen and then you be reactive to it? But, Gayla, I want to really pick up on what you said. We do go through changes based on phases in our life, based on what the marketplace is doing, based on what's happening politically in the world, the economy, all of our systems that we have that were created 250 years ago to keep us safe. If you think about medical, education, religion, all of those, government, politics, all of those seem to be in a state of disruption. And so when we look at that, what is it that you want to be in control of and chart your own path? Also, as we age, our brains change their ability, right? So I think it's your brain, your cognitive development peaks at age 35. And at that point, it starts shifting. Around age 50 is when wisdom comes in. And then in your 60s, it's crystallized knowledge that comes in. So we have to understand that who we are at 40 is going to be a much different person than who you are at 60 or even 70 because of your experiences, because of the way you think and just your perspective on the world.
If someone is letting the start stop them, what piece of advice do you have for them?
I love this question, Gayla, because this was me. Like I would probably win the blue ribbon for this, right? Of letting the start stop me. Because I was in a situation where I was pretty much a perfectionist, right? I didn't want to do it until I'll just use professionally, starting my business. I wanted to have my website, I wanted to have my business cards. I needed all the certifications. I wanted to have all the connections. Like I wanted to have everything lined up before I started and put myself out there. However, what we find when we take a first step is that action creates momentum. So when you start taking one step, another thing falls into place. When you try something and maybe it doesn't work out exactly like you anticipated, it might be better. Or you might learn this is a person I wouldn't want to work with again. What were the red flags? When did I know that this was not the type of person I wanted to work with? So, my advice would be take the first step, get messy. We think everyone is looking at us, but I'll give you a clue. Everybody's too busy at looking at themselves, right? To care what you are doing.
Right.
Yeah, they really are.
I am so glad, Lisa, that you joined me. Again, it's been a couple of years, and I'll link to our previous show, but I also encourage all of our listeners to hop on. The links are going to be in the show notes, and to listen to your podcast. Besides your podcast, how can people stay connected with you, Lisa?
Yeah, so I do want to mention that I am on LinkedIn 5 days a week. I was Monday through Friday, and then I saw some analysis that if you do 5 days a week, which you don't have to, if you're going to be on there once a week, that's fine. But that has the days if you're going to be on 1, 2, whatever days, which days are best. And so for 5 days, it's actually better to be on Sunday through Thursday. So I'm moving a little bit, so you can find me there. I also do want to mention, Gayla, that speaking of reimagine, I will be launching a program. I'm not sure when this airs, but I'll be doing it repeatedly throughout the year. But I'll be launching a program called The Next Steps to the New You. That is a 90-day program. It is a group program, but it's only a 30-minute a week commitment if you want to jump on the call. Other than that, we have daily coaching and a Slack channel. And it's a great way to look at what are the parts of you that you need to clear out, right? I talked about clearing out your closet. What parts of you do you maybe need to clear out? And every day we take one step to that next version of you.
Nice. I love that. Well, thank you, Lisa. It's been a pleasure seeing you and talking with you again.
All right. Thanks so much, Gayla. And thank you to your listeners.
I want to thank you for tuning in and listening to my conversation with Lisa McGuire. One thing that really stuck out for me in this discussion is Lisa posing the question, whose filter are you living your life through? It's funny, isn't it? How we can get lost in trying to live up to someone else's expectations and lose sight of who we truly are and what brings us joy. I don't know about you, but there have been times in my life when I felt lost as to who I really am and what truly makes me happy. Life is a journey of constant exploration and self-discovery. My wish to you is to live full, work fun, and enjoy life to its fullest. Remember, don't let the start stop you from pursuing your dreams and living authentically. Take that first step towards reinvention. Even if it feels daunting, you never know where it might lead you. Thank you again for joining me today. Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and most importantly, keep living full and working fun.